Okay, call this meeting of the Ad Hoc Results Committee to order. If you'd stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Approval of agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Here we go. There are no public comments. And the approval of May 24th and May 28th committee minutes.
So moved.
I second.
3-0. Now we'll get to components of the initial evaluation for 90 days.
Okay.
90 days. Because we have decided that's our first component is the 90-day
Yep.
commitment.
Yep.
I've done some draft work I'd like to share with you.
Great. I've too done some
And so
too.
we can kind of compare
Yep.
notes. We have a work session scheduled in October. I think it's the 24th and 25th.
We have one in August as well.
We have one in
Okay.
August, but it's quite too soon.
Soon,
It's
yeah,
not
okay.
90 days
Yep.
yet. I recommend that we require the superintendent to provide a written report, which is what he says that he's going to do, provide the board with a written report reviewing findings from the 90-day entry plan at that meeting, at the beginning of the meeting. But I recommend that the report include the following items. His report on a visit to every school, written in writing what he found in every school. His report on his evaluation of the senior staff. His report on the results of every community visit that he conducted. His report on his view of the strategic plan. He's had a chance to review it and what he thinks, plus, minus, or whatever. His report on the financial situation. His comments on the draft superintendent's evaluation form, and I'm going to get back to when that, we should look at that. And at the end of that work session, we finalize the superintendent's evaluation form. Now, he'll have time to look at it, we'll have time to look at it in draft form, but that will be the time to have the discussion, and hopefully, we could wrap it up by the end of that session and say, okay, there it is, buddy. And also provide a report on a draft district organizational structure. Draft. So, I would go on to say that we would have a draft of the evaluation form recommendation to the board by the 2nd July meeting. You know, I looked at what we have here, and that's it. But there is so much good stuff in here that frankly, I think we could take this.
We made it bigger for you in the purple thing.
Yeah, we can take this and start work on it and get that out to everybody on the board in time to have something done by July. As a draft. It's not final until the superintendent takes a look at it and we have a discussion back and forth about the grading criteria. But by the end of that October meeting, we say, okay, here it is. So that's my homework.
Okay. I've done some homework. You want me to share what I did? Okay. So I took, remember on this form where it has the, this one doesn't have the numbers. Professional standards for educational leaders, and they had numbers.
Oh, you didn't put them back on here one time.
Where you made it bigger?
Yeah,
Okay.
we made it bigger and the numbers obviously.
Okay,
changed it.
so those professional standards are from the, like it says, professional standards for educational leaders, and it put numbers. So, those standards are from the National Policy Board for Educational Administration. That's fine. So those standards are from
Hello,
the
Joanne.
National Policy Board for Educational Administration. And should we wait for him to come back?
I'll look at the other ones with when we get the one we have with the numbers on.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
yeah, I have mine.
Okay, I'll get it.
The question I'm gonna have is, these headings don't necessarily line up with our goals.
And I think we can,
And that's really important,
yeah,
that the headings are our goals.
right. So we have, well, and see, I went through his 90-day plan and took like the governance team. So I said two of these that are on here right now are in his 90-day plan. A3,
That's what, I'm sorry, I forgot, we're just focused on the 90-day plan. Right?
yeah, right now, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I'm lined up with that.
yeah. Okay.
I think it's gonna be hard to have the whole thing done by July, but for the annual, the 90-day, I think.
Yeah, the 90-day, I think,
I
would
thought
be
you do the
happy.
90-day,
Yeah.
because he's already given us.
Well,
Still.
see, this is the subjective stuff. The objective stuff is, when we bring in Joan or whatever and look at those metrics. And by the way, I met with Joan last week, and she said the sooner she knows when the meeting is, the better. And I told her I'd pick her up and drive her here, so.
Who's Joan?
Joan Deary, you know Joan?
I know her too well. What about her?
Oh, she's really into using data to make measurements to,
Data-driven outcomes.
yeah.
All right, what is she gonna do? I mean, what are you inviting her to do?
To explain the old metrics,
System.
Yeah.
2010, because they look good, but I'm not sure how they were
How to
developed.
follow through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's
And
fun.
obviously, we never did get followed through on some. Maybe she can give us
Yeah.
some
What
background.
the intent was, she'll be good at that.
She told me why they weren't followed through on.
Oh, she did.
She said, these goals were, we wanted 2%, 3%, 4%, and she said they weren't met, and she said, and we all liked Valerie. So that's why, so that's what we have to take out. That's,
So,
That's why we're doing an evaluation.
Right.
evaluation.
exactly. Yeah,
Subjectivity of the evaluation.
Yeah, we gotta take that out. That's the objective part. And so we talked about the first year, instead of shooting to increase scores by 2% or 3%, we shoot for 1% first, that first year. Improve those by 1% and then ratchet it up from there, which
And we just gotta make sure there's a baseline.
yeah, that's what,
Because actually, even if it moved 3%, it would be because he impacted it 3%.
right,
It's not that first
exactly.
year.
Not that first year,
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
Wouldn't happen. It's
Yeah.
just because the machine is
Right,
already in place to do that.
right.
But
And I
same
don't,
time, you're not punishing him,
right.
you know.
I don't feel confident that we have any machine in place right now, though, but
I know.
maybe you do now,
Oh,
because
well,
you're
you
in the
should
system,
just
but,
see some of the stuff that happened
yeah,
back in.
I'd be happy if the measurements were from the second year on, and just assume that the first year is a baseline year,
Yeah,
and then second, third, fourth year, this is what we expect.
yes, yeah. Because
I'd be
really,
happy.
I think he's starting not at zero, but in the negative side.
I think he's starting at
Yeah,
minus.
it's
Minus,
not-
yeah,
it's
I
not-
think
But
you're-
minus with no.
To what explanation are you saying? You say he's starting to minus to what degree?
He has, the whole sea level's gone.
In terms
He
of,
doesn't have a chief
Terms of-
instructional
yeah.
officer, that whole team is,
in terms of,
it's not there.
in terms of academics.
Right, but I think it would be prematurely to say that we haven't seen test scores yet, because just because he's not coming in with the people that he want, or with the staff that established. That's not to say that our schools aren't still functioning, because our schools are. If our schools can't function without one superintendent, that means that this board has done a disservice to the community by having the superintendent that we've had. And we had that we had done. I'm just saying. So I mean, I'm not going to say that because of the fact that we had someone in that chair to do that job. So schools should have still been functioning whether he or someone else is there, because we had someone in there. Now, if we had no superintendent in that spot, then that would be something different. But we had one there.
Right,
So
but this is the evaluation tool for the
For
new
the new man.
superintendent.
right. But when we said that, we're just gonna say, hey, just go ahead and let a whole year go. I don't think so, because school still functions. And we hadn't got test scores back in kid. I'm sure kids still learn regardless of the superintendent.
I got that, but Rodriguez can't, what is he
Yeah,
gonna do
same.
in the first
Yeah.
month or two? I mean, he
I've
has no
seen
team, he doesn't.
I've seen a principal took a school from a failing F to a B in 1 year. So with that being said, the superintendent should be able to do. I expect within some of those same work ethics within the same. I mean, if you put no standards, then there's nothing. Then if you put no standards in place, then.
Well, we're not saying that.
That's not.
But I mean, but when
saying.
you say that you're giving them a free and you're not measuring them off of the first year, then that's pretty much what you can be giving them a pass for the first year.
I don't think that's what we're saying.
Well,
That's how I interpret. That's how I interpret it.
First, I interpret it like the first year is establishing a baseline. Baseline. So there's no way to look back and see how that affected what he's got.
Right.
The first year, he's establishing his own baseline that year. This affects the yo, this is where you started, and now this is where we expect you to go the second year. That's how I interpret that. I don't know why that's.
Well, I just feel that if you set no goals, then goals won't be reached.
So
So the numbers,
the numbers
so
under
on
like
policy, so under policy involvement, it's 2
and 9.
and 9.
So those numbers refer to their standards that were developed by the National Policy Board for Educational Administration. So standard 2 is ethics and professional norms. So that one, reaches that, and standard 9 is operations and management. So I think what they did here, I know what they did here, because I actually talked to the guy from Michigan, and he told me how they came up with this. And he said they started with, the standards. Okay, these were developed by the National Policy Board for Educational Administrators. So this is what all superintendents should meet these standards. And then when they developed their categories here, they said, okay, what standard for this to be successful, for him to be successful at information, what standards does he have to be? So they said standard 2, which is ethics and professional norms. Standard 7, professional community for teachers and staff. And standard 9, operations and management.
Which one? Which
This
one
one
was
this was
That's-
A3,
That was the one that they had last meeting.
this, on this governance, yeah, so
that?
it's
What's the term? What's the topic? I mean, what's the
it's under governance and
Governance.
board
Yeah,
relations.
okay,
And so I,
It's like a rubric. Yeah.
yeah, so then I took what he had written in his 90-day plan under governance team, and I read what he wrote. And I said, okay, so if I'm looking under governance and board relations, do any of these match up with what's already, with the categories? And so information keeps all board members informed with appropriate information. So right here, one-on-one meetings with individual board meetings, establishes a schedule for quarterly retreats. A5, board questions are addressed with follow-up to all board members. So I thought those were the ones that most dealt with that, but that's just one way of looking at it. That's how I kind of.
That's a good way to look at it.
And then here, the next one was board retreat, and that's also under governance, I thought. And then organizational capacity and alignment, I put those under, I thought those fell under staff relationships. And so one of his things was establish appropriate communication and decision-making channels, and I thought, oh, that looks like it's C2, staff communications. Establish leadership teams, standards of practice, so that looks like C4, delegation of duties, delegates responsibility to staff that will foster professional growth, leadership, and decision-making skills. So that was just student achievement. I went to E. So what I did, Dick, was I took what he said in his 90-day plan, and I tried to find it on this rubric. Where would it be? So student achievement would be in section E, educational leadership, and he had a statement, review alignment of standards, curriculum assessment, and professional development. So when I look at this, that looks like E3 and E5. E3 is staff development. E5 is curriculum. So because I actually thought, for the 90-day plan, if we were going to use this instrument, we could highlight
Those particular
just
ones.
these,
Yeah.
the particular ones, and
Sure.
say, you said you were going to do this, and I also found a C4 in this one, where it said review current alignment of central office in support of student achievement. I thought, gosh, that looks like C4, delegation of duties.
That gives some specifics of what to
Right.
put in his written report.
Right, and then community and public relations, that would be in B. And based on what he wrote, I said B1, actively seeks parental input, creates methods for parents, blah, blah, blah. B2, communication with the community, develops and ensures implementation of community communication plan that fosters positive relations. These are the highest, the most effective level. And then B3, community feedback.
You have those in this folder right here too as well, what y'all reading off?
It's on that.
It's on this piece.
Which one?
Yeah.
Right here.
Right there.
Like a sheet like
Yeah.
that, sheet like that. It's on there on the back sheet.
See, this is. Community.
And then operations and finance is D. And I put, based on what he wrote here, I put D1. And I thought, this one, I don't know. I think that he works, this one, minimally effective is the highest he can probably get to this on the outgoing, is that he works to develop and manage the budget to meet the, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's the
Right.
Based on this rubric because where he's coming in. So that was just my thought, if we wanted,
Really introduces him to what we're looking at anyway.
D, you don't have C and D.
No, no.
oh,
They're part of C.
Yeah. It's not just C, the D.
let's see if I have an extra one.
I'll go down and print it.
Okay.
I'll just look at it.
I understand what you're doing. I have a question though. And the question is, how much of the ones that are not remapped are you assigning? That's what you're working on?
Yes,
Okay.
say, what my understanding is, what this committee has agreed, is that his 90-day entry plan is his first evaluation. And then after that 90-day entry plan, it grows. Was that what
Right.
we, that's
That's what we got on our agenda.
yeah,
We have the initial evaluation, which is his 90-day promise,
Okay,
and then we have an annual that we're gonna have
See
to
if you
develop.
okay. So, yeah, the annual's gonna build more of those
Yes.
unmapped things in.
right. After we've done the initial 90 days,
Okay,
then it gets deeper.
okay.
It adds
I got-
more
I
to
got
it.
you.
And you know, the beauty of this is each of these has a number that you put down.
Point,
and
point
then-
number?
Yes.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
get a number if you're ineffective, you
You
get
get-
1
you-
point, minimally ineffective, you
Yeah,
get
you
1,
can,
so on. So
you
each
very
of us
objective.
will fill that out,
Total. Mhm.
and then we take all 11
You got it.
and put it together. But then he can also, we also give him your individual evaluation. So if he says, how come I got a bad result on A3? And I look back here and said, oh, it's that goddamn Geyer. He gave me a 1. So I need to talk to Geyer, find out why he thinks I'm screwed it up. You know, I'm not doing this so good. But everybody else says I'm doing okay, you know, because I got everybody else's evaluation. So everybody has an equal say in the evaluation.
Mhm. That's what it should be.
Yeah, and it's numeric.
Right.
Yeah, that's what
There's
I'm
a
saying.
number.
Yeah.
Be down
There's a
to
grade.
a fine total
Yeah.
number.
Yeah.
Great.
And these things in this particular section of the evaluation are the more subjective ones.
Yeah, right.
The metrics come with the second part of the component where it talks about student growth. And those are the ones that haven't been written yet because we need baseline and we need to get the baseline data and that kind of stuff. The metrics.
That's this one there, we
So
talking about.
like the graduation rates
that-
and that
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, graduation rates, yeah.
Test scores.
Mhm.
Growth targets.
Growth targets, yeah. And then here's the progress toward district-wide goals. Yeah. So we need to really be able to articulate our goals.
Yeah, some of you weren't at the last meeting, but this is these were our goals here. And we ought to be able to simplify this a whole lot more.
Those were
Well-
Valerie's goals.
Yeah.
Right, these.
Oh,
Those were Valerie, that was an example of what we did under the
Yeah.
results of Valerie. The board's goals are for, you're on this agenda.
Student achievement, recruit and retain teachers, fiscal management, superintendent evaluation.
Yes, your goal 1 is student achievement, goal 2, highly qualified teachers and administration. Goal 3, fiscal responsibility, goal 4, policy development and implementation, goal 5, supervision and evaluation of the superintendent.
And the last 2 don't really apply to the superintendent, but the first 3 do. Now, when we introduce this to the full board, we're gonna point out, if the board thinks we're gonna change our goals, better do it right now before we start doing all this. Because all this has to line up with our goals. So, if there's a
Go
thought
through those
process.
again, Robin, that's your,
Yeah.
now 3 things
Goal,
now?
goal 1 is student achievement. Goal 2 is highly qualified teachers and administrators. Goal 3 is fiscal responsibility. Goal 4 is policy development and implementation.
That's us.
Goal 5 is supervision and evaluation of the
That's
superintendent.
us.
So the first 3
The first 3 are
are
his.
his.
Well, I mean, yeah, but there's us too, right? I mean, that's the reason it's board's goals,
Right,
right?
those are the board's
Yeah,
goals.
board's goals, but it lies on his shoulder
Right, He
to,
gets the first 3.
to
First
execute
3,
it
he's
for
gotta do
us.
it, right.
Because of the.
And can y'all elaborate on goal 2?
Recruit, retain, highly qualified teachers.
That's our goal.
What's his retention rate? What's his recruiting success?
Well, yeah, that's our goal.
Those are the kinds of metrics we have to develop.
Correct.
Ought to help, I would look at it, like, ought to help 1 happen, 2 has to as occur and become
In a big way,
sustainability.
yeah.
But all of this is what we want. Now, he's got to help execute what we want, those three things. The other two things, it's on our shoulders to
That's
execute.
right. That's what he gets measured,
Right.
And
hitting those goals.
you know,
Right.
with the highly recruit and retain, you know, we have a piece in that. You know, we did the locality, what the pay, you know, what have we as a board contributed to that?
That's
Yeah.
how we work with him
Yeah,
on all
right,
of this
right.
things. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot of pieces to recruit and retain.
there are,
It's a
yeah,
quality issue.
yeah.
We'll break those down. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a culture and quality.
Quality,
issue.
Yeah, pieces are in there for a little.
And we are gonna
Diversity.
put in there to cut down the number of substitute teachers that we need.
Right. Right, how many
Yeah.
subs we had to pay.
Yeah, cut that down by
Yeah.
Yeah,
changing the culture so people want to come to work.
Right.
Because we have a bad pattern of Friday, Monday absences.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to address that, but
But incentive you build in for the teacher
has
to
perfect
not call
attendance.
in right away, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect attendance, so.
yeah, we want to get to the
Or even some
culture.
attendance
Get
bonuses
the
type
culture
thing.
now, that's gonna be,
I
yeah.
don't think it's that. It's the leadership of the buildings. It's the bullying mentality of the building, of principals and how they're talking to teachers and the relationship. That's the underlying
Oh, yeah.
issue
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
that is being ignored and that must be
Yeah, but
changed.
but sometimes you have some staff are not doing what they're supposed to do, and then they get an attitude and say, they're the principal. It's not always the principal.
That's what this is for, Mr. Campbell. That's what this is for.
That's not,
That's what this pen is for. The pen is for. When they're not doing what you need to do, it ain't for you to go and talk to them any kind of way. It's for you to say, well, you know what? Okay. You put a plan in place, and when they don't do their plan,
what I'm saying
and
is,
when they don't do their plan, hold on, when they don't do their plan, that's when you go ahead and you write the evaluation, or you give them a bad evaluation, and when they're not meeting it at the end of the year,
yeah, but
be done with it. That's it.
But let me say this to you. You got some people,
Hello?
you get a bad evaluation, they run to a board member. And then the board member believes them and don't believe what the principal is saying. And that's, you know.
Well, that's, and that's all in the purview of these discussions.
Right.
However, you're both right, but the superintendent gotta come up with who's right
That's right.
in this situation.
That's right.
It's the superintendent. Hey, I don't care how you read it. We want the results.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's the end key.
Yeah.
And because right now we have a culture that as board members, we have to realize that we have a culture that's not conducive for working. Because when I look across to Riverview Charter School, Riverview Charter School don't get paid half of what our teachers get paid, and their retention rate, they ain't losing no teachers. Their teachers go to work and they come into work. And they don't get paid half of what we get paid, and they ain't lose no teachers. It's the bullying mentality that we have in this district that must go. You may not see it that way, but I'm just
I'm telling you what I know.
Mr.
At
Kimball.
some of the schools, I know. Teachers don't stay because they get bullied by the principal. Because they want to go back to Bluffton and Hilton Head.
Let them go. Let them go. Why are we holding them? Let them go.
There's so much things in that, man.
Yeah.
I've been in this classroom for 39 years with principals and teachers, and there's so much more
Yeah,
involved.
that's right.
Yeah, there's so much more involved.
But at the end of the day,
Sorry.
at the end of the day, my thing is this. We have your phone on the ground, so stuff on the phone. We have a bullying mentality in the district that we must face. That's the number one. Regardless of what any of y'all in here.
All right, that's for the future. Right now,
Yeah.
let's focus on the 90-day evaluation. You have cross-referenced his stuff.
Yes, to this,
To the format we agreed on.
right,
We haven't put a weight on anything yet.
right,
We're gonna put weights
right.
on.
And did we incorporate everything that Dick came up with? Sure, are there,
I was just
okay,
gonna say, would
okay.
you please make sure you give that to Robin so she,
Yeah, I think
those are deliverables.
I see everything, except the strategic plan, but you can find that in there as well.
Because I can, like, when I have that, if you want me to, I'll try and find these things in here as well.
Okay,
You
super.
want me to do that?
Sure, that'd be
Okay,
great.
you know what I'm saying?
That'd be super if you could
Okay.
do that.
When you're talking about the standards, are you good, and as you, the numbers that relate to 2, 7, and 9, those standards are related to that standard. Are we going to incorporate, are we going to relate for our standards, which would be the PEs? Because the PEs have, you know, those are the things you're asking him to present and stuff. So would those be what you're looking at as our standards? Because the PEs also have the advanced accreditation plan in the PE, so when you're using these numbers and that it's related to, are you going to reference to our PEs, or do you want that something different?
You know what, I hadn't thought about that. I'd have to look at them specifically to see how I could reference. These standards are, you know, more individual standards for
So we
for
need to
leaders.
recreate that document so that would be incorporated in this then.
Well, maybe, I guess, so there are 11 standards for professionals, for professional administrators, as recognized by the National Policy Board. I mean, this is a board that everyone would know who's in the business. So there's, you know, mission, vision, and core values, ethics and professional norms, equity and cultural responsiveness, curriculum instruction, community of care and support for students. I guess, I mean, I don't know. This is,
Because my question, what numbers are you referring
Oh.
to?
These, yeah.
So would it go to those standards, or are you
Yeah.
gonna, so we would need,
The PE standards are mostly hard standards that go into the back piece here, where we have
Most
data.
of the PEs
Data.
are, yeah.
These are
Yes.
subjective
Things.
numbers.
right, so that's why I'm asking, so
Yeah.
we would use that document that
I
you have
think,
here?
yes.
That's
yes,
what I'm asking.
Yes, because see, this A3, to me, these are the main things. These numbers here, I mean, we could even, you know, I just wanted to know, what are these professional standards for educational leaders? Where did they come from? So I called the guy from Michigan, he talked me through it. I went to the National Policy Board for Educational Administration, and there they were. And so they're kind of like, let's take another profession, attorneys, and their their criteria of X. So that's what these are. So we
These are
could,
the soft skills.
right?
At
Yeah.
some point, we are gonna have to review the PEs,
Yeah.
see if there are soft skills PEs in there.
So they're not already remapped?
Well, because I was gonna ask with the PEs with the officers, because the board is supposed to review the PEs annually. And so I was gonna suggest that each of the committees review their PEs that affect finance and so forth. And then at a work session in August, what the committees have reviewed and gone through, we can report out at our work session, because that's when we have to approve the work plan. So if the committees would go through and review their PEs and make whatever changes and stuff, then when we get to the work session, when we approve the work plan, the committees have already, and then you can cover it at the full board. So
That
that's
makes
where you would
sense,
do
yeah.
it.
Yeah,
But
makes sense.
then would that also incorporate within the evaluation? So that's,
the question.
That's the question.
and that's why I was asking if
That's
it
The
was.
scoring criteria may be different,
Correct,
but as
There
long
is
as,
no scoring on the PEs.
right, there's no
Right.
score,
It's
it's
just
just,
acceptable.
right.
Right.
oh, but.
Or if you monitor them if they did or if you didn't do it.
Yeah.
Okay, they give us a report and we say, yes, you
Yes.
gave us the report.
Yeah, because remember the last PE that came through the academic committee, I remember this now, it was, we said that there needed to be more, remember?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
Melvin's motion.
Yeah.
He said continuing
Continuing.
with
Yeah,
the monitoring, because he wanted more things.
yeah, well, it wasn't the textbooks, it was something else that came through, but was it the grading? Remember that PE was 10 pages long, and
Oh,
it had way too many components.
yeah,
Or-
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I think I remember.
Because I remember it said something about assessments for K2, and it's like, they didn't tell how many times a year they were
It was
looking,
the
there wasn't
testing.
anything specific.
No, nothing specific
Yeah.
about, how they arrive at some of the information we were getting. We
Right.
getting just a information that we can't really use,
Right.
Yeah.
because we want to know how we can fix some of the things and how we can recommend fixing some of the things. I think.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea
Yeah.
for us to go through the PEs.
Yeah, we can see how many are relevant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I don't think a lot of them are. We measure things that, I'm not sure,
Almost like
need to
policy.
be measuring,
Yeah.
like, maintenance and stuff like that. That's so minor. But we should go through and see how many of them
Yeah.
give us some of those specific measures that we need when we get to the hard stuff in the
Right.
back.
Yes, because the PEs are the performance expectations, so that's what you're asking, that's your information that you're asking to see.
Right.
Yep.
And one thing that I would, if I was on the finance committee, a PE I'd want to see is I want to see how the budget supports our how does it support student
Our goals.
achievement, highly qualified teachers, and fiscal responsibility?
How does it address the achievement
How does
gap?
it address the achievement gap?
Yep.
What components of the budget specifically
Right.
address the achievement gap?
Yep.
And are you saying too?
Every
that-
line item should be cross-referenced.
Right, it
Yes,
should be
that's
to
what
like
you're
student
saying. You're saying
achievement,
that
highly qualified, yep.
your committee now should be looking at the PEs strictly on an academic standpoint. Is that what you're saying?
Well,
I mean, that's academic,
Yeah.
because
When it gives
so
us.
operations is looking at the PEs relevant to operations, and
Right.
finance is looking to the PEs relevant to finance. So in terms of what you need to use it for, I mean,
you know what, I have another
That's
question.
what
Yes.
Yes.
how we're gonna use
Use it.
those to
Right.
measure
exactly.
performance.
And that might be another way to look at it, Mel. Maybe all of the committees need to look at their PEs through the 3 questions. How do these PEs affect student achievement? And maybe there's something in operations no effect, but does it affect highly qualified teachers, fiscal, like
Should certainly be cross-referenced.
cross-referencing?
Everything
Yeah.
we do should be
Yes.
cross-referenced.
It should be tied in
Everything.
somehow, and you can
Some won't.
explain it, yeah.
Right,
And
Yeah.
Sometimes you get these bogus cross-references. It's like, clean bathrooms, affect student
Yeah.
achievement.
achievement.
But it does.
It
I
does.
think it doesn't, but it does.
But we should get in the habit
Yeah,
of saying, we don't do anything without
Unless-
pointing to the goal.
right. That's it.
That's a great habit.
Right.
Yeah.
Preached now for 3 years, I'd love to get around that.
Oh gosh, if we could get in that habit,
I
we'd
think we
be,
can get there. I
Yeah.
think we can get there. I'm confident that we can get there.
yeah,
I'm just,
yeah.
All right, so what's our next step then on the
Okay, so
90 days?
I'm gonna take these and see, and cross-references to those, and then,
And then I'll put those, and then I'm gonna take that, and that's what I'm gonna put in these boxes. Is that what becomes in these boxes that we're gonna measure?
that's not what I was thinking. But let's talk about that. I was just thinking, okay, so we got this, and the 3 of us agree it's a pretty good measure. And there are all these things in here that eventually we wanna measure. But for the 90 days, the things that are in his 90-day plan and what.
It's a product.
It's
These
a
are more
product.
deliverable.
It's a
Right,
deliverable.
right.
Yeah.
So then we would just highlight those and say, okay, under governance and board relations, these are the, it's A3 and A5 that we are looking at. And we could, if you think it's beneficial, we could attach
The page?
his,
This is his first graded opportunity. This is gonna tell us in 90 days a pretty good indication of what we can expect for the rest of the year. And I wouldn't wanna give him, I'd like to have him have lots of flexibility so that we could really see his, I don't necessarily want him parroting back what we've already told him. I wanna know what he's gonna do based on what he's seen, and if we see, hey, we don't agree with what you've seen, or we think you've not seen it as well as you should, then you need to go back and look at community relations and St. Helena Island, you know?
Right, okay. So then that means we wouldn't really point to these things that he's already indicated. We would just highlight and say, these are the areas under governance and board relations that for the first 90 days, we're gonna evaluate you on.
Yep.
And then these are the ones in community relations that we're gonna evaluate on first 90 days.
And I really think it needs to be in writing, because then we have a log.
Yes.
You said right here that you were gonna do this. Did you do it? If not, why not? And, oh, by the way, we'll, maybe halfway through the year, we'll kind of take a review. By the way, you haven't done this yet. Are you planning on doing it?
Yeah, he has to agree. And the only way to
Right.
agree is to sign something.
Exactly.
For the 90 days, I think I have a picture of what we want. Not all of these categories
Not
will
all.
be in his 90 days.
No.
Just the ones that
Yes.
he's already promised us he's gonna do.
Yes,
So we're just holding him to his word.
right,
There's a bunch of deliverables here that are gonna prove that he did that.
right.
Or that's the way I'm seeing it.
So
Your
those are the
list
90
is
days.
proof.
That's what I
These are
understand.
Yeah,
deliverables.
that's
Those
proof
are
that
the
he
90-day
did it.
deliverables.
Yeah, you wanna make a copy
Yeah,
and.
these are gonna be the 90-day deliverables.
Right,
Yep.
Okay. And then, so we'll have two different documents. We'll have a 90-day evaluation tool,
Mhm.
and then we're gonna have, all right.
A draft.
A
A
draft of the year-round.
Right.
So we'll be giving him two evaluation forms, temp forms.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's gonna be the same,
Right, it's the same
Same
thing,
tool.
but this one will be 90-day with this information.
and then we're gonna have.
And then we're
an
gonna develop the
Annual.
Yeah.
draft.
right.
Are we gonna have both of them by July 1st?
I can't imagine.
So
we have
what
an
is the
annual.
July 1st one?
We have to give him the 90-day.
The 90-day
The
one.
90 way.
The nine-
He
okay.
needs to have that.
Yeah,
And he can get an initial draft of this. I mean, get,
That was September
We have it.
1st.
he can even give it to him on the 1st of July, saying, this is the basis
yeah,
of what we're working on, so that you know.
Right.
And he will also be able to also then see the cross-reference between the 90-day deliverable and where it fits in
Right.
this year.
right,
So he can give us some feedback as we're, because that draft is kind of a living document that we'll be working on until the October meeting when we
Yes.
want to finalize it.
you want his whole plan to be a living document. I mean, it's something that he needs to, looking at, you know, if I were him, I'd be looking at least on a weekly basis, pulling it out and saying, you know, where am I at?
Yeah.
At the end of the 90 days, should one of the deliverables be his next 90-day plan?
I don't
That's
see
something
anything-
to think
I don't
about.
see anything wrong with a quarterly update.
That's your formative,
Yeah.
your formative
Quarterly.
Yeah, there you
evaluation.
go.
I would,
That's
I
written
would
by
like,
policy.
How you doing?
right,
Give me a
what's your
quart-
plan for the next
And what's
90
the next
days?
90 days?
Well,
Yeah.
now what are you gonna do for the next 90?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just something to think about.
Yeah.
So I thought, you know, I like the fact that he gave us something and we said, okay, we're gonna hold you to it.
Yeah,
Right.
I like that.
Yeah.
And as you said, giving him some flexibility, we can say, okay, what are you gonna do for the next 90 days?
Yeah.
Maybe you saw something you need to address.
Right.
Show us your
because maybe
plan.
he saw some priorities that we didn't see.
I really want him to be.
But we want to be informed of that.
Oh,
We
absolutely.
want to know the
Yeah.
plan.
It creates the thing that John has been talking about, hopping on. Creates a dialogue that you got an input and he's got an input and you're both going towards the same goal. But he's got a dialogue because he is our expert on the ground.
Right.
So
He has to have the plan to
Yeah.
accomplish what we want to
exactly.
accomplish.
So
It's really not much more complicated than
Yeah.
that. I really want to know that he's got a plan.
Yeah,
And that goes back to something I said about the 90 days, 160 days, and all that, about keep coming back and forth, about evaluating that. That's what I said about when we did the contract phrase. I said that right there. And everybody looked like, what are you talking about? Yeah, this is what you're talking about is not what I'm talking about, what I said, stated that back then.
So we're pretty solid on the 90-day thing, right?
Yeah.
Earl, you got anything?
No, I was just, when does this go to the full board? Or your committee gonna submit this to the full board? Because I know
as
some
soon-
folks will have some
As
questions.
soon as we agree, we have at least one more meeting we have to
Mhm.
and it's not on the agenda for tomorrow.
It'd have to be for the 25th.
the
Yeah.
25th.
Would have to be
All committees are gonna
If-
report out.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a report on what we've done, and at that time, whatever we have so far, first they gotta approve the scope, because the
Right,
scope
yeah,
has,
yeah.
first approve the scope. Then, I'd like to show them, this is what we're doing, this is what we think, the way we're headed, so speak up now, don't wait till we're done and then
Because we
shoot me
need
in
we
the
need to
back.
give this to them 1st of July.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're like 5 days,
Here it is, pal.
Yeah.
yeah,
Go to work.
yeah.
And the quandary of the board overall, don't accept what we plan, what you got, what you presented.
Right,
Or say, no, we don't wanna do that.
right.
Don't give him this
Then the
thing for
question
the
is,
1st
what
of
do you-
July.
Yeah, better come up with an alternative.
Right.
What is it you do wanna do?
Exactly, that backs up everything, as you
Yeah.
know, it's been our
That's certainly
trend.
possible,
Yeah.
certainly possible. All right, so I think we're in pretty good shape on the 90-day, everybody's comfortable, we can get a cross-reference polish up. Now, I do have a question.
Yes,
So we're incorporating, you want,
No, yeah,
let me make it bigger. Are we incorporating G? This in here too?
That's,
Is that, oh, I'm sorry.
Answer my question. We're not gonna have this for the 90
no,
days.
that's not in the 90 days.
The 90 days is just,
Right, right,
Okay,
Stuff
so
forward.
this is not 90 day.
right.
Okay.
right. And so what I'd like to do to just finish up the 90-day thing is, these weights, do we agree with the weights? Or do we want to adjust them?
I really think they're pretty good. Instructional leadership is the biggest weighted
Yeah.
thing, and that's really what he's supposed to be doing. So,
Well, see, the question I had was that I think they add up to more than 100, don't they?
no, I think so.
20, this is 30,
30,
50, no, they add up to
Add up
100.
to 100.
Okay, yeah, I was just going on the top six.
Yeah, so if you look at this page,
Yeah.
30, and 20 is 50, 20 and 30 is 50.
Oh, I know why.
Because you're thinking of the other,
I'm looking at C twice,
Uh,
and it's got 2 pages, so
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm adding 15
Yeah.
and 15, and
Yeah.
20 and 20, okay.
and remember, the total, when it comes to the total, those softer things are only, well, they're 65%. Student growth is
So
25%.
they're 100% is 90 days.
Right, 100% is
100%
90
90
days,
days.
yes.
Right.
Yeah.
When we get to the annual,
Right.
it's gonna be a
And-
lot less.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, and we can even move those down and put the student achievement higher and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
The percentages have to
Yeah.
align to our goals.
yeah.
So this does stay in for 90 days. Except what you just said.
This page does,
Have we used-
oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that page does,
Yeah.
because that's just a
Yeah.
summary.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, but
This
This
one doesn't.
doesn't.
That
Correct.
does it.
Correct.
All right, so we're happy, we got it, other than the cross-reference.
Yeah.
Which you'll be working hours and hours on, but, so we're good for that. 90 days. And the components of the annual evaluation tool, I think we already know the answer. It's basically gonna be everything on here.
Yeah,
And then.
Plus
The page were not included.
right.
Will now be.
So we've got
Will
the,
now be included, and that G part the required components of the evaluation. Those are like the results sections
Right.
that we used to have.
The student growth
And
and
that's gonna
progress
be-
toward district-wide goals.
And that's
Right.
gonna be heavily weighted relative to the soft skills.
Yes, I think we should change these weightings a little bit. Because if you look at the summative evaluation score, the professional practice is 65%. Then you have student growth, 25%, and progress toward district goals is 10. Progress toward district goals needs to be higher than 10.
Actually, I don't think we should even have that on there because the district goals should be up here. You know,
Yeah,
student growth is one of our goals.
it is one of our goals, yeah.
And so progress toward our
Added to the
goals
student group.
is irrelevant.
Okay, yeah. So we could
We'll
just
have
have,
our goals listed.
yeah.
And I think we agreed last time, we're not gonna have a whole bunch, but we're gonna have like 3 goals. We might have subsets underneath
Yeah.
of that, which we're gonna need to work on. And we had a little demonstration, when we talked about retention of teachers. And there's a cultural aspect,
Yeah.
there's a lot of pieces under that. And maybe some PEs will help us there.
Yeah.
So at the next meeting, we're gonna have to review the PEs
Okay,
and see how they're gonna help us. Maybe those are, I have a feeling that they're not gonna meet SMART principles, but we'll look at
okay.
Are we scheduling Joan, Robert,
Hearing.
to come at
Well,
any time, or, and we need to pick our next meeting?
She's for the, after the 90 days
Yeah,
Is she coming?
component, right?
right,
yeah.
if she's.
So
if she's
maybe we
that
should
last
launch
page,
this 90-day
Yeah, that's
thing
what we gotta
first
get out
and
first.
then invite her?
Invite her when we get down to this part.
What do you think?
Well, that's, yes, she's in the hard
Right.
measurable
Hard
stuff.
Yeah.
Numbers.
Yeah,
And I think that's last time kind of what we intended. We'll invite her when we roll around to this, which can't be
Right.
much longer.
no,
Probably the meeting after next,
yeah,
something like that, so she can give us a background before we start developing a measurable,
yeah,
specific measurable time and stuff. But we have to review the Ps first, so that'll be the next meeting.
Okay.
And the meeting after that, we'll invite Joan.
okay,
So that
So the next
means,
meeting, we'll have the PEs, and then we'll have
and
the
finalize
and
this,
finalize this.
and whatever we can do on the annual, but I think the Ps are gonna take us a while. So, 2 meetings in the future, we'll invite Joan, which means we have to schedule 2 meetings now
okay.
in the future.
So are you meeting next week?
I'm out of town all next week, however, I can, go through the PEs on the computer, right, they're all there, and I
I'll email
can,
them out to you.
okay, and I can call in,
Yes.
I can call in if that's, because I hate to,
That's
not,
fine.
I
That's
hate
fine.
not to move forward next week, so just tell me the time.
So you're Thursday or Friday, you said?
Yeah.
So the 20th or the 21st?
We have a finance committee meeting at Hilton Head
On the 20th?
on the 20th
At 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. That's the only thing I've got.
The
I thought-
office is closed on the 21st.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought the office was closed on the 21st.
Yeah, I have to drive Eric to Camp Burns on the 21st.
What about on the
Something
19th?
something.
What did
Do
we
you
just
want to
say,
meet
the
on the
special?
20th?
Well, Dick's gotta be at Hilton Head.
On the 20th at 5 o'clock.
But do you want to meet early like you're doing now? Or?
I'll let them decide, because I'm gonna call in,
I
so.
can do that. I can at noon time. It'd have to be after 1 o'clock on the 20th if we want to do it then.
You wanna do 1 o'clock to make sure we don't squeeze you on your?
Yeah, 1 o'clock would be fine.
Okay,
Okay, 1 o'clock on the 20th.
Robin, you gonna send all of us those PEs or?
Yes, I'll put them in Word docs.
Okay.
That's Thursday, the 20th at 1 o'clock.
And then for the next meeting, which is when we'll invite Joe.
The next meeting is the week of, the
25th?
The 25th.
I can do Monday if you want to do Monday. 24th.
I have to pick him up from Georgetown.
Okay, on the 24th.
That's a 3-hour drive.
Oh, okay.
So we have board meeting on the 25th,
Yeah.
academics on the 26th.
Time is academics.
Academics is at 4 o'clock here.
Oh, no. 27th, we have a dinner,
Right.
but that's not till 6:30.
Yeah.
So I'm going-
27th, early on the
Okay.
27th,
Yeah.
like 2:30 or?
2:30?
Can we do it a little bit earlier, just so I have
1
time?
o'clock?
Yeah, time to get
1
home and pick up my husband,
That's
just
the
come to that
27th?
dinner.
That's 27th.
June 27. At what time?
1 o'clock?
Okay. Is that the one you're inviting Joan to?
Yeah.
No.
No?
Oh,
Okay.
I thought there was. I thought we were gonna do her 2 down, 2.
Not for Joan. We're not going to get ready for Joan
You
until.
don't think so? I thought next one we would do the PEs
Oh, wow. Yeah.
and finish this.
Yeah, oh yeah, that'll work.
And then the following week, we could have her come in to give us the background on the
Perfect.
results.
Okay.
That's right.
So Joan's the 26th.
That's good.
okay. And then I can pick her up from Brenner, she lives in my neighborhood.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. We all recapped up.
Yeah.
You with
Next
us?
meeting,
Any questions?
Our next
Cross-reference
meeting is the
of these.
20th at 1. I feel with Kathy, she's going to do the cross-reference and the format.
You send us the
I'll
DEs.
send you the PEs and then.
And I'm gonna call into that meeting
You'll
on the
call in
20th.
that one.
Yeah,
And I'll value up.
yeah.
All right. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Can I say something to everybody, before we, now we're adjourned? First reading of the